Hey guys, we are so excited to share with you our interview with Cathie Hendrick-Armstrong. We discussed a lot about her Pitch Perfect TikTok events, how she became an agent, and what you can do to become one if that's something that you're interested in, her writing process from when she was writing, and her editing document that everyone is raving about, as well as how to handle rejections and what it means to query one agent at a time and why agencies have that policy, and what passing queries to another agent entails. So, let's get to it. Cathie Hendrick-Armstrong is a literary agent at Marsal Lyon Literary Agency. She only accepts adult queries and is currently looking for romance, domestic or psychological suspense, horror, mystery, historical fiction, commercial fiction, or women's book club fiction. She hosts TikTok lives where she will allow querying or soon-to-be querying authors the chance to pitch to her and get in real-time feedback on the materials. It's incredibly helpful and the feedback is absolutely invaluable. So make sure that you check those out if you haven't already. She does attend conferences where she will take pictures, teach workshops, and present. And these are all listed on her agency website, so make sure you're also keeping an eye on those. In general, with her clients, she has a very straightforward and honest approach to communicating with clients and believes that an open line of communication is super important for building relationships with those that she signs.
We're so excited to have you on. You're obviously a huge agent. We're like crazy excited that you said yes. And so we were wondering if we could, I keep saying we because Maddie's normally with us.
I get it. She's normally with you, but she is with you in spirit. She's just taking probably in bed.
First thing I'm wondering about is, can you explain your TikTok pitch events or any of the lives that you do on TikTok, why you do them, how they run, things like that?
Sure. I'll start with why I do them. I was an author first, and before I became an agent, and there was so much that I didn't know about the publishing world. And not so much the publishing world, but how to go about getting an agent, how to get published. And I made so many mistakes. And so I do the pitch perfects. I do those so that I do a lot of conferences and people come in and they're really nervous about doing face-to-face pitches. So I do those so that authors have an opportunity to practice ahead of time with someone who actually takes pitches, or because sometimes I have my clients and stuff help me, or who are really good at taking pitches and knowing what needs to be in them. So hopefully that if you do one of the pitch TikToks, that even if you don't participate actively, that you can actually see kind of how it works and just take a deep breath so you're not so nervous when you go up with an agent, because it can be nerve-wracking and it shouldn't be, because we're just people and we just want you to be as successful as you can. So we want you to be successful. So that's what the pitch perfects are about. And then just the TikTok lives, again, it just kind of goes back to information is power. And that's kind of what I've always tried to go with, is that the more you know, the better you can do in the big picture. If you don't know something, then you don't know what your own bargaining power is. And so that's pretty much what I do across the board. Is I've always really tried to share information that I have gleaned over the years and hope that it will help somebody else as they're going forward. And they may or may not use it. They may or may not need that information, but they have it if they want to use it.
Awesome. Yeah, as somebody who's participated in these TikTok pitch events, for the viewers, this is when you can say that you want to pitch, and then Cathie will kindly listen and give you a ton of feedback on your pitch. So definitely tune into her TikTok to see.
Thank you. And I should say that it's not just me. I mean, I've had a couple people come help me. We had Kelly Beck has come in several times and helped. I had one, and I can't think of her name. I had another author that had just gotten a book deal with Macmillan, St. Martin's Press, I think. And she came in just spontaneously, and I really appreciated her. So I try to have somebody else besides just myself, so we can, it's not just my opinion, it's other people, and we're working together to try and give them the best feedback we can.
Awesome. And I believe your daughter-in-law helps with timing and things like that as well.
Yep. She's in the writing community also. And so she basically moderates for me, and she does the timing and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, so definitely for all the writers viewing, please tune in to the TikTok Pitch Perfect event.
Thank you.
Like when you first got into agenting, I know you mentioned on your lives before that wasn't something you planned on doing. What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in agenting in the future?
Oh gosh, that's a good question because I fell into it by accident. And I think a lot of times, especially in industries like publishing, things happen. You get opportunities that you weren't expecting. So always be looking for an opportunity. And I don't mean get to know people for the purpose of having an opportunity, but make relationships sincerely and authentically, and sometimes those things just happen for you. But to actively follow it, I mean, there's a lot of agencies that have intern programs that can actually teach you how to do that. That would be the first step. It's just really kind of getting to know as much as you can about it, getting to know agents authentically again. I mean, and then also looking for intern programs that can help you learn. And sometimes those intern programs lead to offers to work for the agencies that they're offering them. But if nothing else, they give you the experience that you can take to another agency and say, hey, I don't have a client list, but I know how the process works because I've worked with an agent.
Awesome. That's great advice. Would you want to explain the story of how you got into agenting?
Oh, it's so bizarre. If anybody has watched any of my TikToks, you know that I try to be the same person in real life that I am on TikTok live as I am anywhere. So hopefully if you ever see me out in the wild somewhere, you've seen me online and you've hopefully felt that I'm approachable online. So therefore, if you meet me in person, you're okay approaching me in person. And so my second book was out on submission with my agent and was looking for a publisher, and I had some downtime, and I was talking to my own agent, and again, no boundaries. I just sit here and chat about anything. And she had made the comment that she had lost a couple of agents and that she was a little backlogged. And I had said, well, I can look at some of your queries if you want and see if there's anything in there that you should especially look at. And she's like, that'd be great. So I took a week or two, did that, turned it back into her, and she was really appreciative. And I made a joke. I said, you should just hire me. I should be an agent. You should just hire me. And she's like, that's a really good idea. You can start on Monday and I will train you. And it was done. And it was such what do you do when you open your mouth and you say that kind of thing? And in the back of my mind, I always would have loved to have been an agent, but I wasn't mentally prepared yet to be an agent. And so there it was in front of me. What do? Do you take it or do you give it up? And so I said, okay. And so she trained me, and I spent the next about 2 years really just getting my feet wet, really understanding how the industry worked before really taking on a full list of clients, because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And the truth is, I don't know that we ever fully understand. I think we're always learning. Every single day is a new experience, and we're always learning. So
That's so true. And I feel like it's so important to humanize literary agents, because as authors or querying authors, we're like, oh my gosh, there are these gods reading our queries. But
the truth is that we are honestly, and that's one of the things, a recent conversation has come up about the power dynamics being unequal with agents and authors. And I really don't like that. I know that it exists, and I don't know that we can ever eliminate it. But when you get an agent, I hope that the power dynamic between the agent and the author and that relationship is equal, because it should be. And it's unfortunate that, there is that power dynamic, but
yeah, and I think that happens in a lot of professions. Like, I'm thinking even in teaching, like with my students, there is a power dynamic, but I never want it to feel like I'm like scary. So that's
right.
like,
Yeah, because I'm just, do I know more than anyone else? I probably have had more unique experiences that have given me information that they might not have, but that doesn't mean I know everything. I don't, an author is the authority, is the final know everything about their own work. And so I can offer suggestions for it. I can, guide in terms of, what might be the best way to go for an agent, or if we put it on submission. But at the end of the day, the authors need to be secure enough to know that they know their own work, and if they feel strongly about something, to be okay about giving their opinion.
that's really awesome advice. And I think for me, like, the more I'm talking to literary agents or seeing their lives, the more I'm realizing these are also people who just want to find books. Like, we're all just people who love books.
Well, and that's the whole thing. I think that is actually the foundation of everything. We all love books, and we all want to see books make it big. And there's a lot of there's some genres that I don't read at all. I do not read science fiction. It is just not for me. But my goodness, I want those authors to be huge, because I love books. I love reading. I love authors. And I don't care if those authors are indie or trad. I love all authors, or even non-published or on the way to be published, or, I love them all. I think they're amazing.
Especially since you're an author, you wrote Rome. Do you want to speak a little bit about, I know you don't have time now to write, but maybe like what your writing process used to be like?
Yeah, well, and the reason I don't have time to write now is because my writing process is so unusual. I think we're told as authors that we should, carve out time every day to write X amount of time. And I think that's amazing advice. It just isn't advice that works for me. I am what I would refer to as being a manic writer, and which is probably a piece of my ADHD, and I didn't realize it until recently. But I will get an idea in my head and I will stew on it for the longest time. I probably have a notebook or a few notes that I'll put down. I don't keep a real good notebook, but I'll start asking questions like, well, what if this were to happen? Or what if that were to happen? And, just those kinds of things going through my head. And then I might sit down and I'll write a full synopsis for what I expect this book to be. Before I even start writing. And then by the time I'm ready to start writing, it is a manic process. I get up at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll write till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, straight through, maybe getting up to go to the ladies' room or whatever, straight through. Might make my husband dinner, maybe not. And then get right back to writing until about midnight. And then I will go to bed, and all I can do is I'm laying there thinking about this book and the characters in this book. And I'll end up getting up maybe at 2 a.m. to write for an hour and then go back to bed. And then I'll still get up again next morning at 5 or 6 o'clock. So I actually write my first draft in about 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it's because it's pouring out of me. I don't have to sit there and think about the next scene. By the time I sit down to write, I know where it's going and it just comes out of me. That doesn't mean it's done. It has to go through, and I got to edit it. Then I got to take it to critique partners and beta readers. But the hardest part of the work is done in about 3 weeks.
That is super impressive, and it makes sense why you don't have the time now, because otherwise you'd be writing if you.
It's exhausting, and I get really upset when I get interrupted. So I have to with having clients and editors and that kind of thing. I can't have any interruptions. And so to be an agent and to say I can't be interrupted, that's not congruent with that.
I noticed that you have this really good guide for writers that kind of walks them through line edits and other sort of edits that they could make. I was wondering, could you describe, like, did that come from your own experience, self-editing your own book, or where did it come from?
It came from a lot. So when I first started as an agent, I took on authors that probably were not ready on a line level. They were great, wonderful writers. They had great stories, but on a line level, they weren't ready, which meant that it still needed some work. And so, first of all, I found myself saying the same things over. These are the problems. This is how you have to fix it. These are the problems. And it was the same thing over and over and over again. And so I started thinking about, what can I do to make this easier? So I started putting some notes down, and then one of my clients had been with a very, very small publisher, and they had a writing guide that they gave to their authors before publishing. So I had talked to the person who headed that up, and I said, can I use your editing guide as a guideline for my own? I want to, I'm not going to take your information from it, but I want to use it to kind of get a guideline for what should be in there. And they were okay with that. So I took some ideas from that one, and then I created my own, and then it's become a living document where every time I see something new or something different that's not in there, I will add to it, because there's just so many things out there. And, there's so much that we, as good of writers as we are, we've forgotten some of the line things from grammar, 8th grade or whatever.
Yeah.
And if we can just remember that. And then along with that, at the same time, I was kind of putting some of this stuff together. My son was getting ready for college and was getting ready to take ACTs. And the one area that he was the weakest in was grammar on a line level. And I had to really look at how can I help him to do better? And I found a lot of tutorials online, a lot of information online to help walk people through how to do this. And I thought, well, wouldn't this be great if we can add this to these documents, so that, because people learn differently. Some people can learn by reading something, and other people have to actually have, visual instruction. And so that's when I added the links and stuff like that.
That is super awesome. I want to say you're kind of famous for this document, because we were interviewing another author, and she was just raving about you and this document. She said, who was it? I think it was like no, H.L. Doherty. She has a fantasy enemies to lovers coming out, or it's on submission now, and she was just like, whoever is Cathie Armstrong's whoever like has her as a literary agent is so lucky, and she was
Oh,
raised.
that is the nicest thing. Oh, I really appreciate that. I have it out there because, again, it goes back to wanting to give people information, wanting people to maybe not have, we don't all need to reinvent the wheel. If the wheel is already invented, then let's use what let's put a car on it and move it along so we don't have to relearn everything, or, and that was what the intention behind it was. So if it's helpful for people, I'm thrilled with it. Some people, they've got it under control and they don't need it, but if it's helpful, I'm happy to have it for them.
I'm wondering, I think as querying authors, and I'm sure as maybe you experienced when you were querying, it feels so personal, each rejection, like, oh, this means they don't like me or my writing, and there's a million gaps to fill. Like, you have no idea why somebody rejected something. What would you say to an author who's kind of taking things really personally, or what advice would you give to them?
I love that. I have two pieces. Well, okay, let me first talk about the rejection first of all, because that is the hardest thing. Because when we write, these are our babies. This comes from our heart. This comes from our inside, and it is very, very personal. So, with that in mind, think about the books that you like and you don't like. Certainly, there are books that just didn't resonate with you, and everybody thinks they're the best books ever written. And think about that. What is it about that book that everybody else liked that you didn't like? It's chemistry. Okay, so think about, take for example, let's say you have a your partner is a twin. Your partner looks exactly like his or her brother or sister. Exactly. Their voices are the same. Their hair color is the same. So when you think about what are you looking for in a partner, what they look like and their values, maybe the hair color is the same, the values are the same, the eye color is the same. Everything on the surface is exactly the same. So consider that my wish list. This is my wish list. The twin is the wish list. So all the elements are there, but why is it that you are attracted to, why do you connect with one twin and not the other? Because certainly you're not going to be going, unless you're into polyamory, you're not going to be, right? So you choose one partner or the next, and the other one can be your best friend, your brother-in-law now, or your sister-in-law now, or whatever. But you don't have the same relationship with both of them. And all of that comes down to chemistry. There's something about there that has caused you to be pulled in. And then it's the same thing with reading. All of the elements can be there. It doesn't make it a bad book if somebody doesn't like it. It just means the chemistry is not there for that reader. And I think that's maybe the most important thing you can understand is that someone not liking it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not for that person. Outlander is probably the best example I have. Everybody loves that book. It took me, I think, 4 times, maybe 5, to get down and actually like that book. Somebody gave it to me and said, this is the best book ever. You got to read it. And so I'm like, okay. So I started reading it and maybe read half of it and like, ugh, I don't want it. Put aside. They kept bugging me to read it. So the next time I picked it up and read maybe a quarter of it and put it aside. And then it was like 2/3 of it until the last time. Again, we're talking 5 or 6 or 8 years here. The last time I read it, I sat down to read it and I literally zoomed through the whole thing in practically one sitting. I couldn't put it down. And I read the next 4 or 5 after that. Chemistry. Something in my brain has changed since the first time I read it to the last time I read it. And that's all it is. And now I would say it's one of my favorite books. Ask me 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, not for me. So that's the first thing that I would say in terms of why, how to take passes. The other thing is, when I was a querying author, Lorna Landvik, who is an author, happens to live in Minnesota. I was talking to her and she said to me, and I'm paraphrasing, she said, never allow someone else's no to be your final answer. So if this is what you want, if this is what you love, you get to decide when you're done. Just because somebody else doesn't like it and says it's not whatever, doesn't mean you're done. You keep going until you find the person that sees the same vision you do.
That's super awesome advice and so important, because I remember getting my first no and I was like, all right, let's table this book. We're done. Which that book wasn't ready to query, but that's so important to hear, like going back and looking at it and just knowing that you feel comfortable with your work is important. I'm wondering, has anybody ever maybe like queried you, made serious revisions, and then queried you again? And did that ever work out, or has that not occurred yet?
I have a client that I did not realize had, because I don't really pay attention to the names when they come into my inbox.
Yeah.
So like when I'm looking at my career manager, it's very rare that I realize, like if you were to send me a query tomorrow and I would read your stuff, I probably would not even realize that it was you, even though we've talked that it sent it, because I don't look at the names. And even if I did, I wouldn't remember. So
Yeah.
I have one of my clients likes to say that I have the memory of a goldfish.
Does
So
Kelly say that?
that's exactly who says that. She just said like 2 or 3 days ago. Yeah, she says, yeah, I know you do have a goldfish brain. One of my clients apparently queried me, and apparently I read her manuscript. I have no memory of this whatsoever, and I passed. She queried me again, and I had to have that book.
Oh.
And I didn't. I've had her for now. She's been my client for a year and a half, and it's only been the last 6 months that I realized it was brought to my attention that, yeah, I passed on her the first time. So every submission is different, and everything should be taken in its own, with its own merits.
I spoke to another literary agent recently who brought up that on Query Manager itself, you can see past submissions, like if they had submitted something before. Would that ever deter your decision, do you think, if you had passed on something before?
No, I mean, I think the only time I ever really look at that, I'll look at that if it says that there are active queries out there.
Mhm.
I'll look at that because I'll think, well, why am I getting another query when there's an active one? And sometimes it will be one of those that I've archived it, which makes it hides it. It's archived for whatever reason. Maybe the author decided to go a different route, or I've had a conversation, so it's archived, but it still maintains its status as being active. So that will be one time I'll look. And then one time I had one that came in, and the author had queried our agency like 47 times.
Wow.
And I was like, and I may be exaggerating on the number, but probably not by much. And I was like, what in the world? And so I would go back and I will look and see, oh, okay, so this person queried Jill on 7 different manuscripts, and this one. So that one would make me look. But other than that, I don't even look at them unless it says that there's something active. And the only reason I look when they're active is to make sure that, say, I don't have something and Anne has something at the same time. And you really only one of us are supposed to look at that. So.
Oh, I see. Because most agencies do have a policy where they tell writers query one of us at a time.
Right. And Marsal Lyon is like that too. And you're fully open to query all of us just one at a time. So if I pass on something, Anne and I seem to have very similar tastes. So if I pass on something, maybe you want to try Anne or whatever. But yeah, just so long as you don't do it at the same time.
Do you want to speak a little bit to that policy just to help writers understand why that's in place?
Well, I think mostly so that we don't compete with each other. Like Anne and I have very, very similar tastes. And so if both of us are reading your manuscript and we're both in love with your manuscript and we're both reaching, because we don't communicate necessarily in terms of who we're going to reach out to, it's kind of a little conflict if we're both offering on the same manuscript and then we find out later that we both want it. We could have had that conversation behind the scenes, and said, okay, we both have, that kind of thing. So it's really just one at a time. And also it keeps us from having, each of us having 27 authors in our inbox and we all have the same material and we're all looking at it, at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know when I was first querying, I actually didn't know that. And so I had queried like 2 agents within the same industry. So I just wanted to ask for our authors that the advice.
Well, and it happens sometimes. I mean, sometimes you don't know the rules. Sometimes you, I think, maybe sometimes you think that the agent has decided to pass, and then and then you query somebody else in the same agency and they haven't passed, and you're like, oh my gosh. At Marsal Lyon, we have a policy that we always respond to all queries.
Oh, awesome. So I guess, how do you do that? Because I know you get so many queries.
Oh my goodness. It is not easy. Right now I have I don't even call her an assistant because it's not really fair, because bless her heart, I can't pay her, and she's family, so she does it because she loves me and because she wants to know. But I have someone who will just go in and just kind of take a look ahead of time. She doesn't answer anything, but she gives me her initial opinion on the things that are in there. And more often than not, if she reads something and she's like, oh, you got to look at this, it might spur me to look at something a little faster. But I still make my own decisions. If she's like, this isn't my cup of tea, I still go back and take a look at it. Because I think it's important. I mean, they've spent a lot of time, not just on their writing, but they've spent a lot of time answering all those questions that I ask in Query Manager. And I know they're tedious questions, so they deserve the respect of having their manuscript looked at. So yeah, how do I do it? I have a little bit of help on the front end, and the rest of it I'm sitting there at 9 or 10 o'clock at night when in the middle of watching like Schitt's Creek or something, and maybe they'll take a short whatever, and I'll sit there and double time it, or before I go to bed, I'll crawl in bed with my phone and I'll look for maybe 30 minutes before bed and go through.
Wow. So it's not like a typical 9 to 5 if somebody wants to be an agent.
No. And that's the really important thing. And I wish authors understood, because I know all of us have this backlog of queries, even when we say we're going to, because I try to answer the query within 30 days. If you send me a query, my goal is to always get you an answer on the initial front end within 30 days. Following that, if I ask for a partial or a full, my goal is within 90 days to give you an answer. That doesn't always happen, but I try. The problem is that I'm already spending 40, 50, even 60 hours a week just on stuff for my clients.
Yeah.
I still have to find that extra time to do the query manager, because that is the last thing on my list, because my clients have to come first.
That makes a lot of sense, because you already committed your time to them, promised to work with them.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the other things that authors don't know is, I would say 97, 98% of all agents get nothing, at least US agents. We don't get paid anything up front. So we are working for free for every single author until we sell something for an author. And together with that, even when we have authors in our thing, if we haven't sold anything for them, sometimes with some agents, it's necessary to, if you have a project that comes in that can sell really quickly, sometimes it's necessary to prioritize those so that we can get them sold, so that we have time to work on the projects that are not sold. Because otherwise we're working on projects that we know will sell, but they may take, instead of taking 6 weeks or 6 or 8 weeks, they might take 12 months.
Mm.
And so we need to be able to support ourselves while we're working on the other projects too. So it's a prioritization thing, and it doesn't mean that one's less important than the other. It just means that we need to be able to financially support ourselves so that we can work on your stuff too.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you think you'd ever take on like a traditional, I don't know what they're called, I guess literary assistant, like if somebody was interested in that role?
I would love to, and I might someday. Right now, I don't really make enough to pay a fair wage for one.
Mm.
And I've talked to Jill and Kevin at Marsal Lyon. Can we do an internship? And they have actually a really good position on it. They prefer not to take on an intern, not because it's not a good thing to have interns, but traditionally, I think interns have sometimes been taken advantage of in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because again, there is that power dynamic, and they just want to be very, very certain that there's absolutely no chance that anyone would inadvertently take advantage of someone.
Yeah.
And I respect that 100%. I think that's incredibly admirable on that. So if I take on some help, I would have to be able to pay the person, and I would need to be able to take out taxes for them and all this other things. And I'm just not at that point yet.
That makes a lot of sense. I know you originally started at a different agency.
Mhm.
Did you have an intern or assistant at that agency?
We had started, so Vicki Weber and I, Vicki is now at CMA, and she's, by the way, she's so amazing.
We're interviewing her, I think, in it.
One of my favorite people in the world. She's so wonderful, and I recommend her to anybody. We worked together at a different agency, and we together had created an intern program. And I say together, she was the brains behind it, because she's the organized one, and she also has the education teacher background, that she could create a program that was beneficial for an intern, and that an intern, if it was a college student, could get class credit for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we took on interns, college students who were like in writing courses and things like that could get university credit for being an intern. And then we had like a semester program. So yeah, we had that, and it was wonderful. It was a double-edged sword, because obviously we had to take time away to train them to do what we needed them to teach them to do. And then, but it was helpful, and I think they learned a lot from it.
That's so cool. Do you keep in touch with any of them?
Actually, I was going to say yes. There's one of them. Oh my goodness! I cannot believe I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. This is so embarrassing, because she was absolutely one of my very favorite. And she was actually a full-time intern because she had to have that for her university. Why can't I remember her name? Because I talk to her, I see her all the time on TikTok, and we exchange. You know how I told you that goldfish brain. But anyway, she went on to be an editor, and she was just a phenomenal assistant. And I just think she's the best thing in the whole world. And I'll remember her name at some point and send people her direction because she's amazing. But yeah, we had her for a whole semester, and one of our first ones, and she was Taylor Hill. And
You know where she works?
I don't know where she works exactly. But she was so amazing, and but I think she does freelance editing, I think is
Oh,
what she does.
cool.
So, and she she has got a TikTok program, TikTok, where she talks about editing and what she's looking for and that kind of thing. Maybe she's not freelance. Maybe she does actually take on books. But anyway, she's phenomenal. And I'm so proud of everything she's done. She's doing way more than I ever imagined I would do. So.
That's so cool. It's cool to see how like that thread carries on, even though you've left that agency and you're working at a different one now.
Yeah. And the program we had for internships, that program was actually developed around Taylor's need at the university she was, because she had she had to have an internship. She could not graduate without it. And she was having trouble finding one. And so that's why we had created an internship, and then using the milestones for what she had to have to turn into her university. That's how we created that internship at the time.
That is so cool. That's so nice of you guys to like circle it around somebody's needs.
Well, and like the truth of the matter is, I mean, and I think Vicky would agree with this, and I think a lot of the agents that I know would agree with this. We love authors, and we want them to be successful, and whatever that means, if that means pulling away the curtain for whatever's been hidden behind for so long, or whatever, that's what our goal is. We're just people. We just want to help people.
That's so awesome. And I think you do a great job of doing that with your pitch events and like all of I've even seen you in pitch events say like, okay, email me and maybe we could Zoom to figure out your query letter. It's just like heartwarming to know that
Oh
that's
my gosh, yes. And you were probably in one when I did that, and I'm so embarrassed because I did that for one of them, and I still have to get back on the answer for her.
I think that's understandable. You're
Well,
right.
I should have gotten right before now, but yeah, I have done that occasionally. That one in particular, though, I know which one you're talking about. That one was a really tricky one, and I need to get back into it. And because I offer that because it's a sincere offer, but
Yeah.
sometimes I have more on my plate than I really should have, and then I offer that. I'm like, okay, now it's going to take me a lot longer because they're going to expect it tomorrow, and I don't have it yet.
Well, I think it's understandable, and I think a lot of people charge money in this industry, or some people do it with ill intent, like they don't have intentions of reading or helping them. So it's really cool to see such a like well-known literary agent just say, "Oh yeah, I'll hop on a Zoom with you, and we can figure out this query letter together."
Well, and that's the whole thing. Is I do that a lot, not just the Zooms and things like that. But in fact, right before I was talking to you, I was talking to an author. She's an indie author, and she's thinking about querying for traditional, and just to kind of be a sounding board for the thoughts that she had, and just see, is there anything that I can offer that will make her journey a little less challenging.
That's so awesome. I feel like I know that this is kind of parasocial because I just watch your TikToks, but I'm like, wow, she's so nice. Like when you go on live, I'm like, oh, that's my friend, even though like obviously you don't know me.
Well,
like, that's how I feel.
the funny thing is, and you say that, but that kind of goes in hand with my lack of boundaries. My daughter's always saying, well, you got to have more boundaries, and she's right. But that is, everybody's my friend, and that's how I feel about it. So when you guys come out to the TikToks, and I see your name pop up, yeah, that's my friend. And
I know I'll be like, hi, it's Lakshmi, and you're like, oh my gosh, Lakshmi, and I'm like, wow, she remembers me. Like
I do, and sometimes I feel bad because I don't remember. And like, for instance, you for a while there, you had like symbols for your name on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I could not remember Lakshmi to save my life, because the name is a little more challenging for me to remember. And then I was like, God, I can't remember. But hello, symbols.
I totally forgot. Yeah, I changed it now. I mean, that would say like, wait, that's so funny. Yeah, I guess. So sorry, I got off track. But
No, you're fine.
Like I literally just feel like I'm FaceTiming a friend right now. That's why I'm like being.
That's what I want, and that is why. I mean, that is why I try to be the same person on social media that I am. I try to be now. Am I? I try to be. I hope I am.
I think you're killing it, because I remember I even like DM'd you about like coming on here, and you were just like so nice about it. I thought
It's
that was
an
really
hour
cool.
of my time, you know, and okay, do I have an extra hour? I mean, if I'm honest, probably not, but but at the same time, you're reaching, even if it's only a handful of people, you're reaching people that can probably use the information.
Yeah, that's exactly how we feel too, because in a small way, like this is our excuse of just asking the questions we need answers to, and then like querying authors probably have the same ones. So I think this is really cool. I'm wondering right now, or maybe I'm wrong. Right now, you're open to queries? Are you still open?
I am, but I probably will not be open very much longer.
Okay.
I opened because I had actually forgotten that I was supposed to open in May. So I opened a little bit late. So I get a lot of queries. So I need to get through there and get them figured out. And I feel bad because my list is so very, very tight for what I'm looking for that I would say probably 99% of everything that I'm sending is a pass. Not because I don't like it. I mean, my goodness, I'm getting such high quality stuff right now. And sometimes I will just, in fact, I have I'm on a Discord with other agents, and I just put out a question there. So let me know what your lists are, because if I get something on my list that I think is good and it's not for me, maybe I can recommend them for you. You know,
That's so thoughtful of you. That's like so nice that
yeah,
you're willing to connect like that.
anything that I can do. I mean, I have to tell you. So Anne Rose just joined Marsal Lyon. I got to tell you this story. Anne and I knew each other peripherally. I can't say that we knew each other well. We knew who each other were. I think we might have had a conversation once. We might have even done a TikTok once. But in terms of knowing each other well, we really didn't. She got a query in her inbox. I was close to queries, and she got a query in her inbox that was completely just not in her wheelhouse. But she had remembered that I was looking for it.
Oh.
And so she asked me, she sent me a message. She says, I have this author, this manuscript. I think it's probably really good. It just is not my cup of tea, but I think it's what you were looking for. Are you interested? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm interested. I read through that book so quickly. I signed it as quickly as I could.
Oh, is that the recent one that you signed?
It was the X Marks the Stalker series by Kay and
Oh,
Wilder.
cool.
I am so in love with that series. I'm just like, so for those who don't know, it's like Butcher and Blackbird meets Lights Out. It is dark romantic comedy. It is absolutely laugh out loud funny while still being a dark romance. Um, and I'm so happy for the author because she got a really, really nice deal with Hachette, their Grand Central imprint.
Oh.
And I believe, actually, I think they've taken over the ebook and the audio, and I think the print releases on July 1st, I think, or the first week of July, I think. And but I'm so excited for her because she's phenomenal. But all of that I have to contribute to a tribute, I guess, to a tribute to Anne, who was kind enough to reach out to someone she didn't know that well and say, hey, I think that this might be your cup of tea. Are you interested in? And I think that's what more of us should be doing. And there are a lot of us that are doing it. I mean, some of those that work together, and I hate to drop names here, but I'm going to. I mean, there are several agents from Azantian Literary that I work with, CMA, Fine Print, Kimberly Cameron, KT Literary, The Neighborhood. You know, those are kind of my. I know I'm missing some, but those are kind of my core group of agents that I talk to on a regular basis and that I share information with.
It's crazy because as querying authors, we think, okay, we're just giving it to this one person. We don't think about, yeah, it could like trickle to other agents, or agents could know each other and share this
Yeah,
manuscript.
yeah.
That's so awesome.
I met Jessica Berg recently. She's the Jessica Berg
Oh,
Agency, but that's not what she calls it. She calls it Rosecliff. I'm sorry, she's Rosecliff. Um, Gosh, absolutely love that woman, and I think she's doing some amazing things. And I think one of the things that she's interested in, if I'm correct, is more like she likes literary fiction and historical fiction. And every time I read something like that, I don't think I've sent her anything yet, but I'm always thinking, okay, Jess will like this. I think Jess might like this. So, and we connect. And so now I see Jess at different conferences, and it's like, oh, there's my people, you know?
It's just like so crazy to think about, because I think the opposite is true too. Like Madeline, who we miss her. Like, she's not here right now, but we became friends because we're both querying and we're like, oh, let's look at each other's manuscripts. So it's so cool how collaborative the literary world is.
I think, and I don't know if it's always been that way, but I think it needs to be more, and I think we're getting there. And I love that. And I'm, like I said, I just think that the publishing world is really small. And if we don't help each other, I don't think that that's, reading is all about empathy. I mean, it really is. It teaches us empathy. And if we're not exuding empathy in what we're doing across the board, then what are we doing? What are we doing? If we can't take a moment to have grace for other people, to offer empathy for somebody else, what are we doing?
That's so true. I feel like in so many of these interviews, I'm just like, wow, somebody should write that down. That's so true. Like what you're saying is really honest. And especially as book lovers, like so many of us kind of grew up wanting to join these other worlds. And so we're just like naturally so interested in each other and getting to know each other. So I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. So since you are open right now, by the time this goes up, I bet you won't be open because this will be out a few weeks. But I'm wondering, like, what's your white whale book? Like, what are you really looking for?
Oh my goodness. Well, right now I'd really love to take on a horror romance. That's at the top of my list. I'm really looking for anything that is horror based, even without the romance. I love, love, love domestic and psychological suspense. So that's at the top of my list. And then romance in general. I love romance. I'm really interested in racial issues.
Oh,
How do I explain that? Where did we come from? Say, pre-Civil War, not Civil War, pre-civil rights. Where did we come through the progress we made through civil rights over the years? Where are we now? How did we get where we are now? Or, that kind of thing. Just so cultural criticism on those kinds of things.
yeah.
So I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in like a trauma healing kind of thing. If how to, especially those in the peripheral of someone dealing with trauma, how can we support those people? And just other kind of niche projects like that. So again, that goes back to that whole empathy thing, I'm really interested in those kinds of things. And so what else? That pretty much covers the biggest things that I'm interested in. Oh, I know what my white whale is. I'll tell you
What?
right now. I am absolutely dying for something by an Indigenous writer with Indigenous characters. Bonus points if they happen to be from Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and ginormous bonus points if it happens to be Cherokee, Choctaw, Seminole, Creek, or can't remember the other one. Those are the tribes that are in Oklahoma. And then also Ojibwe, which is up here near Minnesota, and Dakota.
Awesome. Wait, where did that interest come from for you?
So I grew up in Oklahoma. And I don't know how much you know about the history of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma, before the land run, which is when, I don't know if you ever saw Far and Away, where, Tom Cruise, was it Tom Cruise or it was Nicole Kidman? And years and years ago, 1889, Oklahoma had a land run where basically they gave the land away. All you had to do was you had to come and you had to decide that you wanted to run for the land. You waited until a specific day. They blew off a shotgun and people literally ran for the land and staked the land that they wanted, and it was theirs for free. Okay.
Oh,
Before that, go back 50, 75 years before that even, Oklahoma was like this place that was inhabitable for anybody. Nobody could really live there, they believed. So they relocated all of these tribes, these indigenous tribes, to Oklahoma. They threw them off their lands. They made them walk thousands of miles, walk thousands of miles to Oklahoma, where they were given this promise of having this land that they could have. The whole state was theirs to have because it was just not habitable for the white man. Okay. That was kind of the thought process behind why they did this. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh, well, we need more land for people. And, we don't care about the promises we made. So, you can go in this little corner of the world, we're going to take the rest of the state. We're going to give it away to the white people again. So as a result, Oklahoma has a very, very large population of indigenous people. And I'm from Oklahoma, and I was raised, I would say at least half of the people that I knew many of my very, very good friends are all part of active members of tribes in Oklahoma.
Mm.
And that is a culture that I really miss. It's not my culture, but it's a culture that I really, really miss. Living in Minnesota, I know there's a lot of indigenous tribes in Minnesota, but it's not quite the same as, going back to Oklahoma and there. So I miss that. And I think there's a really beautiful, rich heritage there, rich culture that a lot of the world doesn't get to see. A lot of the United States doesn't get to see. And I would love to bring that to people's readers so they can experience some of that beauty that in some ways have been stolen from them and that they are working so hard to retrieve.
That's really awesome, and it's really cool that you're so knowledgeable about it as well. I'm wondering, I've seen literary agents put like own voices, like hashtag, I don't know if you've seen that. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, and if you ask for those?
Own voices. So yeah, a lot of times that like own voices is such a broad topic. It can mean own voices in terms of race and culture, or it can be own voices in terms of if you have disabilities, or the phrase I'm looking for is, we were just talking about this yesterday because everybody in my family is neurotypical.
Oh,
Neurotypical versus um, so if you're not neurotypical, any of those things, anything that are perspectives from maybe even to some degrees somewhat marginalized types of situations, those are really important because people need to see themselves in books.
yeah.
And I feel really strongly about that, and I need to do better as an agent in picking up traditionally marginalized authors, because I think back to when I was a kid, I don't remember ever reading anything as a child that didn't have a white character in it.
Yeah.
And as a parent now, my kids are grown, but thinking about the children that I know who are not white, they need to have something. They need to have a reflection of themselves. They need to know that they can be the next Michelle Obama, or the next, the mayor of New York, or I can't think of his name, but they need to know that their experiences are common, and they are valuable, and you know, they are accessible. And I think that we're trying in the publishing world to do that. I don't think we're there yet. I still think it is more challenging as a traditionally marginalized person to make a huge dent in the publishing world. And we need to work harder on that.
That's really awesome to hear you say. And I know this is something that you even brought up in like one of the lives that I've watched. And I just have to say, like, as an author or an aspiring author, it's really encouraging to see a literary agent care about something like this. So that's really awesome. I do remember very early on, I asked you about like, do you think I apologize if this question is redundant, but I just remember like this had such a big effect on me like months ago when I was watching you, and I just know that there are other people with names like mine. I remember I asked you in one of your lives, oh, like, do you think that characters should have names that are easy for English speakers to pronounce? And I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, because it just meant so much to me.
Well, okay. So no, I think that the name should be reflective of the character. Okay. So, like, I have a friend who lives in India, and her name is Nilu. And sorry, Nilu, didn't mean to call you out, but her name is Nilu. And so I, as an Indian woman, that is a name that is, I'm assuming, is how's the word? I don't know how I want to phrase this, but certain cultures, and they have names that are familiar to them,
Yeah.
versus, and to not use those names is to be inauthentic to the characters. Okay. So why would I want her to be called Sally? She's living in an Indian world. All of her relatives are Indian, so we're going to call her Sally, and her best friend is Kate, and her other best friend is Nancy. That doesn't make any sense to me. And again, that goes back to the whole empathy thing. Part of reading is empathy and immersing yourself into the story, the experiences of the character. And I'm not doing that if it's not authentic to the character. So I think that you should use names that are authentic to the nationality of the character, the experiences of the character. you know, I feel really strongly about that. Um, which is different than like a science fiction book where you make up the names. I couldn't pronounce them if I wanted to. No, it's not different. It's just a different, but yeah.
That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I just feel like it's so important for people to know because I remember, I mean, this is like a personal experience, but in first grade, I had this teacher and we were reading some children's book. I can't even remember what it was or where the character was from, but it was clearly a name that was not an English name. And then she made up like a name like Ben or something for the character instead
No.
of like trying to pronounce it. I think it just stuck
Oh
with me
no.
because I was like there with my name, Lakshmi. I was like, wow, I guess my name should be
Oh,
pronounced. So it's just so important.
oh my God. Okay, so I have a kind of a little similar thing. The book Where the Red Fern Grows. I
Oh
don't know if you
yeah,
read. Okay. So it takes place in a place called Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And I
yeah.
remember this story because my daughter was in fourth grade and the teacher was reading the book and she kept calling it Tahlequah.
Oh no.
And my daughter being a fourth grader and having been to Oklahoma, again, Tahlequah is a Native American word. We have a lot of words like that in Oklahoma. Chautauqua is one, and we learn to pronounce them because, so for me to hear it, it's like I might mispronounce something, but when I hear it, I want to pronounce it properly. And so it's like nails on chalkboard. So my daughter, having been to Oklahoma, having known about Tahlequah, raised her hand and said to her teacher, "It's pronounced Tahlequah." And the teacher shut her down and says, "No, it's Tahlequah."
Oh my gosh.
No, it is not. And I will throw down on that. This is the
As you
hill
should.
I die on. It is Tahlequah, or like in Oklahoma, it's Chautauqua, you know. Those
Yeah.
are, so it's the same thing. It's like the guy could the character could have lived in, Adamstown. That's not where he lived. He lived in Tahlequah, you know.
Yeah. That's so cool. I just feel like it's always helpful to see like allies. I don't know what you identify as. I guess like an ally to people of
Yeah.
color. It's really cool.
Actually, it's funny that I'm wearing this today. It says I have a t-shirt that says privilege is when you think something is not a problem because it isn't a problem. Because it isn't your problem. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I feel like, yeah, I think, and I'll probably get into arguments with people or people will disagree with me, but I think as a white woman, whether I want it or not, I have privilege.
Yeah.
That I don't walk into a space and worry about, are they going to mispronounce my last name maybe, but are they going to mispronounce Cathie? No, you're not going to mispronounce Cathie because it's a very English name. Am I going to walk in and they're going to look at the color of me and make they definitely are going to make assumptions based upon my color, but are those assumptions going to be positive or negative?
Yeah.
Or those kinds of things. So those are all privileges that, do we ask for them? I don't think most people ask for them, but to not acknowledge that they exist is to be either obtuse or to be in denial. And maybe it's the same thing. Or to be lying to yourself, to be lying
Yeah.
to yourself because it exists.
That's like I just can't express how much it means to hear somebody like that
Oh,
you respect say something like that because it's so important. Like all of these moments we have and these interactions with people, you never know what's going to stick with you and stay with you. And I just remember I like randomly clicked on your live stream and I commented about my name and you were so nice about it. And I was just emotional. I was like, wow, it's so cool that I can make this connection just like watching this lady on my phone. But then
oh.
also that she's making a connection with me and she's learning how to pronounce my name, even though I'm like in bed in my pajamas, like
Oh,
not.
funny. Well, and I think, especially in publishing, I think more of us are open to that. I think more of us believe that.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I need to be more proactive about. See, and when I read, like I told you, I don't even look at the names when I read. I'm reading for what, but I probably, because privilege is a thing, even if it's sometimes it's not even, it's just sometimes it's not even intentional that we have biases that
Yeah.
are based upon. And so I know for myself that I probably need to be more intentional about maybe even looking at the names or maybe even looking at the backgrounds and saying, okay, what can I do to be more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all always learning too, for sure. Like, I definitely have so many privileges that I don't even think about, especially in teaching. Like, I'm thinking about students I teach that are like openly out or they don't identify on the gender binary. And so often I just assume, like, I have long hair. People will think I am a girl and I am a girl. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think about how people perceive me and how much of it is privilege. So I think it's just so cool that you keep this conversation going as well.
I think I've learned a lot. I have a really good friend in the publishing industry, that when I was first published, she and I and some other women were all part of the same. We started a chat 10 years ago. We still have the chat going today.
Oh, that's
And
cute.
yeah, it's really fun. And these people are my very best friends in the whole world, even though a couple of us have never met face to face. But for 10 years, we've had a daily chat. And I've been kind of absent, haven't been there as much as I had. But she is a Black woman and has really just been very patient with me and allowed me to learn what I didn't know. And what I'm learning, and I'm still learning, it's an ongoing process, but I'm learning it's a lot of shut up and listen,
Mm.
you know, um, is the best way to say it. It's just shut up and listen, because we don't know what we don't know unless we're willing to open our minds and listen.
That's so true. I feel like that's like I feel like everybody I need to shut up and listen for sure some of the time. Like I don't think it's an insult to hear that at all. And I think that's so cool that you have friends like that. Especially like an online, like you guys haven't met each other, but you text this group chat.
Well, yeah, and we have now. We've been together, we've been in person, and like I said, she's one of my favorite people, one of my best friends. And I'm really grateful because even before that relationship was strong and strongly built as it is now, um, and she may have even, knowing her, I love her with all my heart, she probably did say shut up and listen. But I'm especially grateful because that's got to be exhausting. That has got to be exhausting to be a person of color and to constantly be explaining. You shouldn't have to. And the fact that she would take the time so that I could learn, I
That's so
appreciate that.
cool. Is she a literary agent?
She's actually a published author. Yeah,
Oh,
she writes
cool.
romance and she's amazing. She's agented. She's not one of my clients, but she's agented, and I just couldn't be prouder of her. And only because of where the conversation is going is I'm not going to drop her name, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
if I hadn't already said all this other stuff, I'd probably drop her name because I think she's fabulous.
That's so cool. That's like so interesting that you have so many connections with authors because I'll notice even authors in your lives and you don't represent them, but like you're still friends with them and you know them. That's super cool.
There are some incredible authors that I'm. Somebody asked me the other day, was there any author that I look at now and say, dang, that's the one that got away?
I think I asked that.
Did you ask that? Did I tell you it was Swati?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yeah. Swati, I don't know how to say her last name. Swati Hegde. Is that how you say it?
I have no idea.
H-E-G-D.
I've never seen it.
Anyway, I read her stuff and I could see the promise in it. I knew that this was going to go somewhere, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I didn't think I could represent it well. And so I passed on it. I think I might have even told her that. It wasn't 6 weeks later. She not only had an agent, she had her first deal.
Oh,
And do I regret it? I only regret that it couldn't have been me. Not that I passed on it, but that it couldn't have been me. I regret it because I would not have been the best champion for it because my heart wasn't in it the way it needed to be.
Mm.
And to take on something just because you think you can make money off of it, I think that's very transactional. And while this business is transactional, I try really hard not to be what I can't think of the word, but the stereotype.
That's super awesome. That's so cool that like also you can always just read a book for fun, like if somebody else publishes it. Like I don't know if you have time to do that though. Like you're
I just picked up a new one. Deathbringer, I think is what it's called. I just picked that one up yesterday. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I was talking to an editor at a publisher about something, and I realized that she was the one who took it on. I was like, this has been on my list. So I had to go buy it right away because when I looked at it previously, it wasn't out yet. But
that's so cool. I'm so excited about querying and like learning more about the industry. And I just feel like literary agents like you who are willing to talk and open up about it just like open so many doors. So I just have to thank you so much. Books with Indigenous characters, are you looking specifically for own voices, like an Indigenous author writing about the Indigenous experience?
No, I don't think that it's not necessarily so much the Indigenous experience in terms of an intentional desire to put the experience in it, but we all have different experiences just because of who we are.
Yeah.
So an Indigenous author writing an Indigenous character is going to bring experiences into that character's arc that will be different from experiences that a Black character or a white character or an Indian character or whatever character has, because our own world that we live in, our own culture, whatever, dictates our experiences. And so I don't think it has to be, I'm writing about a book, the girl's going to a powwow. And I mean, if it happens to be in the book and that's a natural part of the book, yes, but I'm not necessarily looking for it to be, prescriptive like that, and that it has to be follow that, although I will say, and somebody told me this was very creepy, and I apologize. I am obsessed with the Indian culture of aunties.
Oh, really? That's so random. I don't think it's creepy. I think it's random though.
It's so random. I read Dating Dr. Dill.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love the aunties in that book. I love, and maybe that is almost a personal thing because I grew up in a very large family and I'm so removed from that family. But I love those dynamics of everybody loving you as family, whether you're blood family or not, and they're all interested in your life and they want you to have the best things. And so we're going to do these. I absolutely love those, and I love that dynamic. So with that exception that I love, I'm just obsessed with the auntie culture, if you will. Yeah. I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's no funny.
That's cringy, but I just love it. What do I have? I'm hoping that these two, I just pulled these two out. I think both of these are Indian authors, and I'm hoping that they both have it in there too. So
it's just so random. I've never heard somebody say that.
No, it's just really ridiculous. Nisha Atu, because that was she did dating Dr. Dill, but yeah, I'm hoping that they have that. Yes, I know. It's just one of my little things.
It's okay.
It's one of those things I really enjoy, because it's those personal connections. You know what I mean? That's what it is for me. It's just that whole being surrounded by so many people who love you and want the best for you.
Yeah, that's such a cute way of putting it, because when I think of Indian aunties, I'm thinking of like the gossip and like the whatever, but that's true.
That's so fun. All that is so fun is that, why are they gossiping? They're gossiping because, well, in part because they do care,
yeah, true.
They care, and I think it's just a lot of fun, and maybe that's not, maybe that's my Western culture being, I don't know, maybe that is cringe, and it's not intended.
I don't think it's cringe. I don't think it's cringe, but I just think it's the most random thing somebody could have said to me. That's why that's the only reason. No, but okay. Oh, do you know when you will reopen to queries after you close, just for viewers, in case?
Probably not before the first of the year. But maybe if everything falls like it should, maybe in January.
Cool. So I think by the time we post this, you will definitely be closed. But for the viewers, stay tuned for January. Yes. Maybe.
Just pay attention to social media, my wish list and that kind of thing, because I do try to keep that very updated, so that you know when things are coming. My wish list, at the top of my wish list always is, I am open for queries, or I will open for queries at such and such.
Okay, cool. That's so awesome. I have seen agents who have that, but then it's been like 3 years.
It is hard to remember to keep it updated. So,
but thank you so much.
Lakshmi. I appreciate it. All right, I'll let you go, and good luck to you.
Yay! Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for watching our interview with Cathie Hendrick-Armstrong. We hope that you found it just as insightful as we did. And if you have any questions, please make sure that you comment them below. And stay tuned for the next one. Bye!